Welcome to this week's edition of Trading Bits and Bytes. I'm Susan Littlefield as we once again do this remotely thanks to COVID-19 and Mother Nature. We see a lot of things that are happening in the market trade today, the short and the long-term effects of what's going on in this ethanol industry, DDGs. We're also going to take a look today at what's been happening in this cattle market, and we're going to get all that information coming to us from Aaron Bertels, Aaron with Crossroads Marketing. As we look, Aaron, at these markets, short-term and long-term on the ethanol, there's some big factors that are having to be looked at.
Yeah, absolutely. Oil has been predominantly the issue here as we've moved forward with grains. We know we're in the midst of COVID-19 and everything that's going on there, but oil's been our bigger detriment, especially when it comes to corn and what it's done to ethanol, and just the plants shutting down and the prices and oversupply now, and just the lack of production from a daily standpoint being the lowest we've really ever seen reported since they started doing this in 2010. So big things today. They had an OPEC meeting where they essentially came to an agreement, but then towards the end, some of the smaller countries involved in OPEC didn't like their situation within this and have held up that cut that they were hoping to get. So we'll see if that can end up taking place today. With the two bigger countries involved in agreement, I would expect that it will. But then you got to wonder, how quickly can this turn itself around? You have a lot of damage that's been done with some of these places actually having to close down at this point. So we will see. We will see. The first big step is getting them to cut this, get the artificial oversupply out of the marketplace that has been taking place, and then see what the ramifications moving forward of that are going to be.
At what time do you think they're going to end up pulling U.S. and Canada, for example, into this whole discussion that Russia and OPEC have been having?
Well, Russia's been trying to do that this entire time and stating basically that they don't want to make any cuts until the U.S. joins into the cuts as well. And I think that there's probably been some background conversations on this. I'm not obviously inside of those things, but I know you read that there's been communication between President Trump and Putin and Saudi Arabia. And so I would say there's been some deals going on there, but the G20 summit will be the first place that the U.S. and Canada are probably going to be getting involved in these discussions. They were not on the OPEC call today.
One of the byproducts of ethanol has been the DDGs, and looking at what these plants being shut down, what that's going to mean for our livestock producers.
Yeah, and this isn't, I'm not in this world as much, but I would say right now, DDGs have become a very important part of feeding and what those guys do, and a great protein source. Corn at this point, with the price that it's at, is cheap enough that probably won't be a huge problem for those guys, especially not their biggest concern with where cattle prices are at today. I think that they'd be able to supplement their needs by just buying corn. Now, in the future, I don't know that DDGs are something that any of us want to see go away or go by the wayside, and might end up being the more important part of what ethanol plants produce. So it's something we need to get back to where it was, so that it's another feed source from a competition standpoint that they can use. But right now, in the short term, I think corn's going to be able to fill that need.
Well, we're headed into a holiday weekend. Is that going to be good or bad for this cattle market, knowing the struggles and the way this pendulum continues to swing?
For volatility, you've got to assume it's not going to be good, just because of the time, right? The time frame. It's the main reason they don't want to shut down a lot of the markets, stock market, those things at this point with how volatile they've been, because it doesn't usually quell the volatility. It just pents up the volatility. And so it won't be a huge drastic difference. I mean, how much more volatile can it be than what it's been here recently? But I don't think it's going to help. And that doesn't mean up or down or sideways. It just means that the volatility, whether that is up or down, depending on where prices want to go, usually doesn't get better when people aren't allowed to trade.
All right, lots of things to think about as we head into the Easter weekend. Happy Easter, Aaron, to you and your family.
You too. Thank you.
Aaron Bertels has been joining us this week for Trading Bits and Bytes. He's with Crossroads Marketing. Again, have a great, happy Easter. I'm Susan Littlefield.